This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/red5.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Yo, 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 what you say?
Can't say welcome chat because there's nobody there.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully people will come in.
Chat,
Once we
say something.
say something, Chad. Hello, everybody.
You think anybody's listening?
Eventually. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Good. Today was a really slow day in a great way. So it was a long week, so I'll take a really slow Saturday.
For you or for the account? Because we were pumping.
Well, yeah. Well,
We were insulting people, people right and left.
Kind of rude, but okay.
People unfollowing. They don't like shills. Like,
Oh, speaking of shills, hey Damon. Oh no, we're really screwing up.
shills are backstage.
Did he say shill?
Yeah.
We spent.
You know what I found out? So
How much do you have to bash it to not be a shill?
Right. This is what I found out, and I think you can concur. And it's funny because it's both ends of the fandom spectrum. Whether you are, I love everything Star Wars, like way over here, and the people that are like, you know what, Disney Star Wars, that's Star Wars, way over on this. You can't win. We obviously don't like everything that has Star Wars labeled on it. But when we do like something, we like to tell other people why we like it and discuss it like normal fans. But then we get labeled as shills and get insulted. And you can't be, this fandom suffers from something, but you can't be in the middle, in the space where sane people are, where you can say, you know what, let's talk about it. I like it because A, B, and C. You don't like it because X, Y, Z. All right, cool. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
But no, it turns into insults and unfollows and snowflake material. And I don't know if any adult actually uses the word shill and thinks they're being treated seriously there.
Did you see Tony Gilroy? I mean, everybody's giving interviews, but Tony Gilroy basically was talking about the different
fans
sect, sects that we have. He's like, it's like a religion, and he basically said we should probably stop trying to make stuff for the entire spectrum, which I agree with. I think
you agree with stop trying to what was it?
I mean, he knew that Rogue One was going to be for a certain crowd, a certain bit of the fandom, which we happen to be in, which I would hope is the majority. But I don't know. I don't think you can make stuff for the entire Star Wars community anymore. I think you're going to fail. I think Acolyte, I think they tried to do that. I think, and it.
You know what? I don't think Acolyte was for the majority of the fandom.
It was supposed to have Jedis, Sith, Dark Side.
Yeah. But I still don't think that show was done for the majority. And we talk about how George Lucas kind of just made a story that appealed to everybody universally. Can we do that now? I think maybe we should probably start. But I think Andor, for me at least, the way I see it, and there at some point you have to kind of filter out the extremism. You have to filter out the extreme voices that just aren't.
But they're the loudest. They're the loudest, though.
It doesn't matter. But they're pointless. Their voices are it's strong to say. It's
we've talked about this before. Battle. Damon brings it up, and I'm sure our guests will have something to say on this. How does Star Trek do it? Is it because of the material, or is it the fandom? Because
you think Star Trek fans are better?
Well, I mean, that's what Damon's saying in the chat. I mean, you think it's just as bad as it is in Star Wars?
Every fandom has a splinter group similar to Star Wars, and I think the Doctor Who fans are the same way. The Marvel fans are the same way. The DC fans are the same way. They just split up this whole Snyderverse versus James Gunn. They're always like this. There's no winning. You can't you can't be in the middle and say, you know what, I like both things, but I may like one better than the other, or I like this versus that.
Star Wars has to be the worst, though.
Yeah, I don't know. Besides Star Wars, what other fandom are you deeply entrenched in?
Well, I'm not. I'm just saying, like, I don't think like Transformers, that's or G.I. Joe, or I don't know, any of these older things. I don't know, or Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings. What you may have people that love the movies versus people that love the books,
right?
But I don't think they like argue with each other. They just recognize that the content is different.
I don't know about that. We'll have to ask Andrew about that. Andrew is kind of in that realm. And then Damon too. I mean, I'm a big Star Trek fan as well, and I see the back and forth. So yeah, I don't know. Let's say hi to the chat before we get in there. And obviously we mentioned Damon. Hello, sir. Nicole is in the chat. Oh, speaking of Nicole, how you doing on the book?
Well, I was gonna say I almost caught up to you, but I'm sure you're a few more chapters ahead now. I'm up to chapter 14 now.
What was it? What chapter?
14.
Yeah, you're not catching up. I'm at 44. Good
Lord, no. You've obviously had more time this week.
Well, again, driving is an asset when you're reading.
You're cheating.
Get out of here. But yeah, and if anybody is listening, Reign of the Empire doing and Nicole can confirm the Red 5 reading club is happening tomorrow. And I think I don't know what chapters, I think we're something up to 39, I think. But yeah, go follow Red 5 Reading and see if Nicole can give you the schedule of the chapters there. So yes, let's see who else is in there. The Jedi of Chicago, how's it going? Good to see everybody in the chat. And Ubaldo, how are you doing? Good stuff. Good stuff. What else was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you one other thing, but Ubaldo says he's enjoying the book. Definitely is not what I was expecting, but I too am enjoying the book. I think it's dense with politics, but we can talk about that during the book club thing. But yeah, it's good. It's
you're still working on Alexander, trying to get Alexander on?
Yeah, he has not responded, but try to get that going for sure. And I want to remind everybody, I posted that we're going to do a little Andor, Cassian Andor giveaway. This Funko Pop, he is in his Narkenia outfit.
I think you're saying narcotics.
He's on narcotics, dude. Yeah, Cassian Andor.
Is that minor rebel character that was in the show?
Yes, the minor rebel character that you don't know anything about. But at the end of the show tonight, we're going to tell you how you can enter to win, and otherwise, it's going to.
I'll add it to the collection.
Add it to the collection. All right, Andor season 2. We are discussing the final story arc, the finale, and
Epilogue.
The epilogue, if you will. All right, that's interesting. I know you had texted me that it felt more like an epilogue than a finale, and I kind of tend to agree. I think actually I'm more in favor of the previous arc, the last couple of episodes, which were kind of very dynamic. And I know a lot of people on the internet were saying that it probably would have been able to end it there. We got some extra, episodes after the fact, but they were still dynamic. We can go episode per episode, but yeah, I would agree that it was more of kind of an epilogue.
Yeah.
So episode 10 is called Make It Stop, and it is referring to a little bit of a
You want to get the other guys out here first?
Oh, that's right. I was just so worked up.
I can hear Charles yelling from the green room.
He fell asleep. He fell asleep.
We were going to bring you guys somewhere, episode 11, episode 12, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there, eventually.
We're going to bring you in the epilogue.
But everybody, please say hello to Pat and Charles from Conversations. Hello.
Hello, and welcome to Conversations. No, wrong show.
Thank you for bringing some legitimacy to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for actually bringing us on.
I heard you guys before we were brought out when we were backstage, and Ro mentioned something about being insulted, and I think the only insulting thing on this show is having us on.
I thought you were going to say having you backstage for 20 minutes while we talked about.
No, that's damage control.
We were warning the folks about you guys. But we've been wanting to have guests on the discussion shows on Saturdays here.
A couple minor guests, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we just kind of ran with it. Nobody expressed interest in coming on to talk with Brad and I. So we kind of coaxed you guys.
Congratulations, you were the last ones we asked.
The last ones asked. Yeah.
Yes. Finally, the brides.
Finally. So
it's like high school sports again.
What's high school sports?
With high school dating.
Yeah.
Jeez.
We're just a bunch of shills.
Oh,
what? I don't like that word.
Love me some Disney.
That's so juvenile.
Yeah, it's insulting. But real fast, how did you guys? How were you enjoying the Andor show? What are your general thoughts about it?
We got to wrap up the show, so let's just do this quickly.
You guys got 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I loved it. I enjoyed it very much. It's over now. I was shocked at the surprising lack of Ewoks.
Wait. Andor.
Oh,
Not the forest.
With an A, not the forest moon. Yes.
Got it. Now that makes sense.
I can
Andor
picture
Caravan of Courage.
I can picture you waiting for like 90 days. Where are the Ewoks?
Yes. Where are my people?
Yeah.
The answer to your question, Brad, is 5'3".
Oh, yum nub down there. Thanks for being on the show.
Well,
yes.
What did you think of the show? Like, why don't you? So you take it first.
Oh, yes. No, I did. I very much enjoyed it. Initially, the first episode I loved. Oh, we're not talking about the whole thing.
We are.
Okay, great. Yes, no, at first I loved it, and then I was like, for the next couple. And then the next week, I loved it, and then I was like, And then when it got to 7, 8, 9, I was like, all right. And then 10, 11, 12, I was like, let's do this thing. I can't wait for next week. And then that's it.
It's over. So. I felt it started slow for me personally, but it progressively got better. Me, it was like episode 6 really started to sort of hit its stride. 7, 8, 9 were great and impactful, but then 10, 11, 12 was phenomenal. Absolutely just phenomenal.
Yes.
You put 10, 11, 12 above 7, 8, 9?
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, we just we were starting to talk when you guys were backstage. I feel like 7, 8, and 9 were probably the best of this season. The impact, the drama, and it's heightened drama. It really is.
Yeah.
And Brad and I thought that the end, and we knew how it was going to end. We were reading that it was going to end at the kind of at the beginning of Rogue One, et cetera,
Sure.
and we were kind of excited. But it does seem like a kind of like an epilogue, a slow roll into Rogue One. And maybe that was by design. Obviously they couldn't mess with things that they couldn't add any more narrative, I guess, to that little, that story leading up to Rogue One. But nevertheless, episode 10, 11, and 12 have some very powerful performances, some very interesting,
Absolutely.
narrative pieces. I want to ask you guys, this first episode 10, Make It Stop. We find out a little history on Luthen and what he was before he became, the art dealer / rebel organizer. I wanted to get your takes. Let's start with Charles. Luthen seems to be, he was like an Imperial officer, but there are some powerful moments in some of those flashbacks, and really a lot of that stuff comes in the audio when he's saying it could stop. You hear the Imperial troops firing on people, and you hear screaming. And I think that's like the first time you ever hear that sort of thing in a Star War. What are your thoughts on that, Charles? And then we'll go to Pat.
I completely agree. And that's why, for me, I wouldn't see it as an epilogue. I can sort of see where you're getting at that, because you're sort of closing off the stories. But these stories, especially Luthen, a massive character, and the last 3 episodes really do a great job of setting which characters are going to be alive and dead for New Hope and so on. But Luthen and Leia were fascinating combination, and you saw in those episodes she was more mature than he was, in certain ways, and she was already sort of managing him in certain ways, and that helped him grow something differently, and of course it affected her for the rest of her life as well. I don't think that we've, it's somewhat like a Padawan Jedi relationship to a certain degree, training wise, but he was setting her up for something completely different. And even when he said, with the little mechanism there, it's I lie all the time, and constantly training her to be something that she didn't start at, but is going to turn into someone he's going to need in the future. And that just gives so much more weight to what she did to him, or what she had to do to him, of course, at the end of that episode.
Yeah. Pat.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, initially when we meet her, she's just his receptionist at the art dealer place. Mm-hmm. So that's the impression you get, is that she just kind of works for him, and to obviously for what he's got his hands in, he needs someone he can trust, and he needs someone who's capable in order to do the real mission stuff that they're doing behind the gallery and everything. So it's interesting to kind of see how she is brought into light for the viewer in this season, especially these episodes where she's literally infiltrating a hospital that is on lockdown with Imperial guards everywhere. And she's able to make her way all the way to him. And it shows those flashbacks intentionally to show the things she's learned to get her not only to this point, but beyond that, to where she kind of helps to kickstart that next level of the rebellion.
Mm. Yeah, and I posted Nicole's comment there. Very surprising that it's her first acting part.
Wow.
I think the actress really carried a certain weight. I mean, we suspected that she was more than just an assistant, behind the scenes. It seems like at a certain point she took more control than the audiences thought she would. But loved her character. Brad,
do you think this was her original trajectory? Do you think Gilroy had this? I can say Gilroy because it can be any one of the Gilroys working on the show. Do you think Gilroy had this trajectory planned for her? Or they're like, oh, you know what? She's not doing a bad job. Let's give her a little bit more of a story arc, because she really was, as Pat said, pretty much just the desk clerk in the shop at the beginning. Do you think this was planned all along?
I mean, it could have been, because obviously, the 2 seasons in, and then I wanted to address something too that the chat is talking about. The fact that this series was originally planned to be 5 seasons, and we've got Tony Gilroy doing interviews now. They are really going heavy on the marketing here of this series, but I think it's because Tony Gilroy wants people to watch the show and enjoy it and talk about it. But I think some of those interviews, there are hints that he wanted to add something else that ended up either on the cutting room floor or they didn't have the budget for. But there's a lot there that seems to have been that seems to have maybe fallen off the radar. And I think I think Nicole said maybe 3 seasons would have been nice. Obviously, the 5 seasons, it would have taken too much of their time. Both Tony Gilroy, he's 68, and Diego Luna didn't want to stay away from family that long. It's a decade worth of material there. But I don't know. I think maybe it was planned, and again, maybe because it was kind of an abbreviated series, from 5 to 2 seasons. We just see it roll out that way. I don't know.
Did anybody have any doubt that she was going into that hospital to kill him?
No, I thought she was going to rescue him.
No, I was pretty sure she was going to.
Yeah.
Because if he taught her anything, it was to what his wishes would have been at that time would be to off him.
Yeah, and he used that Nautilin bleeder on purpose. So that was his plan. But what surprised me was how easy it is to take someone off life support in Star Wars. I was like, there's way more to it here than that.
Just a couple buttons.
It's just a back to tower, and that's it.
Yeah, it's like
it's like an oil drill.
It.
Yeah. What do you guys think of this comment, Nerdmigos? Because I've seen this comment before, not only on this series, but some other.
Sorry.
Yeah. And it's difficult when a series is kind of played out as an ensemble piece, because obviously you want to get to know the characters. I don't have a problem with Luthen and the Clea story at this point, because I think it was done fairly well. I think it gave the characters a little depth. We get to see what's going on in Clea's mind, and obviously Luthen, getting to know a character like that really gives us an insight into the rebels. And it's funny because I hear a lot of talk where they are comparing Luthen to Saw Gerrera, almost the two sides to the same coin. Luthen uses people and has his agenda. Saw the same way, but it's interesting. I don't have a problem with the Luthen and Clea show.
No, me neither. I think it's a good balance, because they're somewhat of the linchpins. Even when he said, the rebellion has flown away from here. So now I can't remember exactly at the start, but the foundation, they call the capital F, the foundation has been set, and that was the whole thing with Latin in season 1, where they set planted the seeds of the rebellion. If it wasn't for Luthen, they wouldn't have been where they were. And like Andor said, he's helped us build so much of this. I think that on Saw's side, it's a great comparison, because they're both antagonistic to the official rebels, right? Because even they weren't really welcome on Yavin 4. So it's two sides to a very similar coin. But yeah.
See,
what's your comment?
I feel like very different about these episodes than what you guys did, because like what Nerdmigos is saying, like literally in that first episode, I'm like, the show is called Andor. I would like at some point to see Andor in this show. And I don't know. I feel like they could have fit that maybe a little bit earlier into the season somehow.
Yeah, I can agree
maybe
there. Yeah.
with those boring ass episodes in the first arc I don't know. Maybe they could have slid it in there somewhere. I don't know. It just, I again, the pace I was expecting coming from that third arc, I was expecting somewhat still of a faster pace going into the last arc, and it was anything but.
I feel like the business with Luthen and Clea, but Luthen specifically, is a good obituary to the character.
Mhm.
So to do it, to explain it at this point in his life, I think makes the most sense. But while we're talking about characters who weren't really welcome in Yavin, neither was Lonnie Young.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but it's interesting to see those types of actions on behalf of Luthen, because that's exactly what Cassian did in the beginning of Rogue One.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
So you get those sort of patterns established that lead to where we see him shortly thereafter.
Yeah. And we know the line where he says, "I've done terrible things for the rebellion." This show really puts the war in Star Wars, and I think it's funny that the internet is all abuzz because they are trying to figure out if this is the right story to tell in a Star Wars story. Is this the right thing to do going forward? And I feel like you've got little kiddie shows, right, that are in that have a Star Wars wrapper. You've got the fun family stuff with the Star Wars wrapper. Why can't you have a story that is based on something that is a little bit more concrete? I don't want to say realistic, but character driven. Something that, and I've heard Tony Gilroy say this, something that takes the source material seriously. And I guess, this is it. I don't know. I think it fits well in the overall scheme of telling a story with a Star Wars label on it. I don't know if there's any story that doesn't belong in Star Wars. It's just the way they present it. I mean, even the Acolyte, I can appreciate the type of story that they were telling. It's just that the execution was a little off.
Did you guys feel, this is something that we've talked about, and we said this is one of the tweets that we got this week. Did you guys feel that this particular show muddied the good versus evil debate? Could you clearly see what was good? How do you guys interpret that? Because there's still this desire from a lot of the fans that the Empire is 100% evil and the Rebellion is 100% good. What do you guys? And they, furthermore, that's what George. People putting words in George's mouth. That's what George would have wanted, would be to portray the Empire as 100% evil and the Rebellion is 100% good. Just want to get y'all's thoughts on that.
It's interesting because last time we talked to Ro was about Darth Vader under the Disney brand.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there was a lot of talk in that about the definitive good and evil, and how you could immediately tell Darth Vader was the bad guy, these stormtroopers were bad guys, and you cheered for the rebels from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to jump from that to this, because this is space fantasy, but at the same time, in order to make it believable in space battles, as far as that's concerned, in order to make that believable, there is that element of people rolling up their sleeves and getting things done. And that means some rebels having questionable tactics, and then also some rebels that actually think, working with the Empire, that they're doing the galaxy some good, and some that have that conscience that are kind of defecting and becoming spies and funneling intel to the rebellion.
And I look at it too. You guys were talking about before we came on was, and you just mentioned it, Ro, as well, like the wrappers of these stories. So if you're going to have a kids show that, like, I don't know, like a Skeleton Crew, that you have clearly defined good guys and bad guys, and it's an adventure, it's a fun story. There you go. You're going to have, let's say, more baseline Star Wars, like I don't know, the Clone Wars or something, where you have definitive good and bad, and they're fighting each other. Andor, or Rogue One, in its story, chose to explore what's under those stones, because sometimes, well, very rarely is a war of good and bad guys purely black and white. There's always those crossover points that you just said, Pat. So Rogue One and then Andor, to an extension, was built upon exploring those gray areas, and that's where the uncomfortable side of the stories come in. So if you build a good story in any of these sort of silos, I'm saying good, you write a good story, I mean, they should be acceptable to anybody to watch the Star Wars galaxy to enjoy, because it all sort of fits in the bigger picture. But it may not be your particular brand of Star Wars you want to watch because of, I don't like having to deal with good guys doing bad things. Okay, well, you don't have to watch Andor then. Or I just want to keep it to the kids stuff because it's not going to be threatening in that way. So, but they should all fit in that same bucket of a good story and a well-written story.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think you nailed it on the head. Is it the audience's sensibilities when they're watching these shows? Is it something that they are relating to in some way? I know a lot of people aren't too happy with how these characters were portrayed as more gray level rather than the, good guys wearing white, bad guys wearing black. But I don't know how long, and I might be penalized for this, but I don't know how long Star Wars could survive with that mentality. Will it always be what that is? I mean, how long can a franchise survive by telling the same story over and over and over again?
Somebody gave you a hard time for using the word mature, which really surprised me. They said use the word drama instead of mature. But like when you're a kid, and you're in kindergarten or before, you're taught the very simple premise of good and bad, right? This is what good and bad looks like. But as you get older and as you mature, you realize that it's not that easy. And many people who claim to be good are not good. And even some people who have been betrayed as bad throughout history, we're trying to do the right thing and may have been doing the right thing. So I think mature is the right answer, because you should have, as you said, Ro, a complete spectrum. Something that tells the simple story of good versus evil, and then something that delves a little deeper into it and what that looks like, and how far are you willing to go, what sacrifices are you willing to make, in the name of your cause.
Yeah, and and obviously, I think Nicole said it earlier up in the chat. It's all perspective, it's all opinion. But the thing about this show, and now that it's over with, I mean, we can evaluate it, the right way, because we've seen the whole damn thing. But I'm a technical guy. I love watching these shows and kind of seeing where it takes me. But when I'm done watching, I look at the technical aspect of the show, and this show looks like no other Star Wars, either on the small screen or the big screen. It's done with such expertise. It's written with such gravitas. The characters are handled in a way that you don't see that in popcorn summer blockbuster type, products or an IP. And is very surprising. As soon as I finished watching this last episode, I tweeted out that it was too bad that we will probably never see a Star Wars like this ever again. It's a gem of existence, and the wide berth of quality visually and script wise, narrative is so wide between Andor at this point, which I think is the best of the small screen Star Wars, and something like the Book of Boba Fett. It's such a wide chasm, and I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand that big of a gap in production quality.
I think it has to do
Thank
with
you, Jedi Chicago. I'm a learned Jedi.
Yes, it's vocab time. So I think it has to do with the leadership on these projects.
Okay.
And the visions that they have. Okay, because you've got certain, like for Andor, for example, you've got this complete absence of lightsabers. Okay, you've got this lived-in world that uses practical sets, practical effects. They even got the blasters to work right. Just everything about it is a whole different thing than Mandalorians flying around on jetpacks and the all of these special effects heavy projects that they're doing, which cost more money. So again, it's like if you have the same budget as Book of Boba Fett, but they're doing stuff where like you're escaping the Sarlacc, and then some of the stuff that they did with the makeup, special effects, and things like that. You can go further with your project, which means paying for more high-end talent like Stellan Skarsgård, and really focusing on. And when you have 2 seasons too, you can focus on the script and the plot to really nail it down and lay the groundwork in season 1, and then hit the ground running in season 2.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
Hey, Ro, one of the comments you said we were going to talk about tonight is what did it say? I can see how lovers of the original trilogy would not have liked Andor.
Yeah, our friend No Zoop, he says, yeah, I saw the original post. Personally, I understand how anyone that loved the original trilogies does not like Andor, but that's just me. And I responded, I can't see that.
No.
What do you guys think about that one?
I don't understand that whatsoever. That makes 0 sense. In fact, they're like partnership. It's a partnership for those things. I mean, yes, okay, I can see the good versus evil sort of thing, but Andor, Rogue One and Andor has supremely lifted everything about the original trilogy in the same way that the Clone Wars animated series lifted everything about the prequels. That's how close knit they are. So I personally disagree with that 100%.
I find that comment vague and unconvincing.
I can't even see, and Zoop's given some good comments in the past, but I can't even see how you get there to that conclusion.
Well, and I think that comes from space of the folks that claim that Andor is not Star Wars, that Andor steps away from the George Lucas I guess ideology of hope. But it's funny though, because I mean, this sets up the lack of hope, and like Brad says, it elevates the original trilogy, because Luke Skywalker is the one that brings hope to everything that these people are suffering through. They're obviously working for a cause that is basically to eliminate the Empire, and they have lost a lot. And where is that hope? It just happened to be living on Tatooine. I don't know. But as far as a mechanical aspect, a more technical aspect of fans of the original trilogy not liking Andor, I'm with you, Charles. I don't see that connection, because they are such companion pieces. Now, there are people that are posting that we have a new trilogy, Andor season 1 and 2, Rogue One, and Star Wars: A New Hope.
Interesting. Well, I could tell you that when I was watching it with Star Wife there, Bernadette, a couple of, when we watched just this on Tuesday and Wednesday.
By the way, you keep pointing over there. Is she standing by the corner with a baseball bat, making sure that you say the right thing?
She has my script. What I'm allowed to say, what I'm not allowed to say.
Just watch how he's blinking. He's actually doing Morse code with his eyelids.
Yes.
She was on the edge, literally at the edge of her seat on episode 11, in fact, that the hospital rescue. Absolutely, she could not believe the pacing of that, and that was one of the other reasons why I was watching this. Like, that's why I love these last three, because they were bookends for these characters, but the action was phenomenal. But anyways,
The suspense,
yeah. So that being said, I think that as a renewed trilogy is fascinating to think about, and she wanted to watch Rogue One right after it. I'm like, okay. So
it's the number one. Yeah, it's the number one movie on Disney Plus now for some reason.
It is.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that makes sense. There you go.
After the series, they announced that when the series is done, you're going to see not only the original trilogy, but you're going to see Andor or Rogue One in a different light. Brad, have you watched Rogue One after the series yet?
That's the one. No, I haven't watched it yet, but I already know that's going to be the case.
Yeah,
for sure. And you have so much more invested in these characters now, especially the line. I mean, I've watched that movie a million times already. The line that keeps going through my head is when he tells, and I got goosebumps right now just talking about it, when he tells Jen, "Welcome home" to Yavin. Like, holy crap. Like, what they had to do to build that and to get them there on Yavin. And, hey, I got friends everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells her, "Welcome home." Like, good Lord Almighty.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We get a very interesting about face in the character of Dedra. She obviously organized this attempt to capture Luthen, and he obviously did his little thing. I think the repertoire, is that a word?
The sounds French. Charles, is that right?
Yes. The reporter.
The reporter.
The reporter. But the dialogue between Luthen and Dedra there it's very cloak and dagger. And when I say dagger, the pun intended. But really great conversation. Little
when he said there's only two pieces of questionable provenance.
He meant them.
I wonder
right?
how many people missed that completely. That he's talking about the two of them. Like, that's genius.
The thing. That is the thing too about the writing of the show, and I don't understand how people. I think audiences today, unfortunately, I'm going to say it, are used to being spoon-fed information. They don't think for themselves, and it's like, come on, look at that.
You're just a pseudo-intellectual.
Yes, right.
Shrilling intellectual.
I think because they're not picking up on it. I mean, that was a brilliant line.
Oh yeah, it's great
with a smile. Like, because they both were like double, triple lives that they're leading.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I wish they did with Dedra, when she's alone, she seems very powerful, very confident, very, in your face. But I think the character of Dedra sometimes falls into the victim role. And obviously because of the officers around her, towards the beginning of the season, Partagaz set her aside and said, be careful how you manage your career here at the ISB. She's female, obviously she's in a unique position. But it seems like, they really kind of, ate her up towards the end. I wish that her outcome wouldn't have been what it turned out to be. But I saw a post where Partagaz was talking about how the ISB, they're not a security agency. They handle disease, and at the end was basically, they were just, corruption eats within. So
I mean, those are tall words coming from a bit player like Partagas.
right. Background player.
Yeah. And to go back to your earlier point about watching Rogue One after Andor, I watched it yesterday, and it does ring differently after having seen the entire Andor story, and I mean better. Which, talking about a film like Rogue One is pretty high praise to say that it got better, but the foundation that's laid through the series enriches the entire film.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
You're talking about we're talking about Rogue One, and you're talking about how Dedra acts. What I love now that we're talking about that, and now we're saying it, is how the food chain in the Empire, and like Dedra, and then when she's around Terry Pendergrass, or and then they're acting like badass, but they get around Krennic, and then they fold, and then when Krennic gets around Tarkin, he completely folds. It's amazing that they just eat their own like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The tension when the ISB landed, near that safe house, and they were going up, that was very, very well constructed, scene wise. The editing was great. The pace was fantastic. It was very suspenseful. And I think Tony Gilroy had offered some information in an interview regarding how he wanted. There's a couple of scenes that he wanted to do where K2SO was a little more on the horror side of things, and I think that hallway scene. Every great character gets a really great hallway scene. What is up with that? I love it.
Pat did a post with that. Just literally went a text thread a couple of days ago, and he posted all the badass hallway scenes and ended with the Rogue One. It was good.
Cassian, I've secured a pathway, I guess. So good.
They Gone says he wants to list out some things when Perrin comes up, and I think what's funny.
Perrin.
Brad, I don't know if you remember, I had my theories about Perrin, and I know early in the season the dynamic between husband and wife was very strained, very, very off. But I felt like Perrin was in on it, and I think he was only acting for the Empire and for the sake of the audience, so it would be able to throw us off. I thought Perrin was, like people are saying in the chat, kind of an unsung hero. He was basically, being this character, this loser husband, gambling problem, et cetera, in order for, if the Empire ever got back to Mon Mothma about the missing funds, that he would basically, because he loves her, he would basically be the scapegoat. And I wish that kind of came to fruition. It didn't. She basically just left and left Perrin to kind
With
of
his mistress, obviously.
seek warmth elsewhere.
Yeah, I felt the same way. The way that he was more integrated into the story, and he took more of an important role within the wedding, situations and stuff. It's like, maybe Perrin's going to start turning as a more important player in her home life, aside from the rebellion. And then he just faded away back into the background again. So not back necessarily towards what he was in season one, because he's grown a bit obviously in this one, but yeah, he just, like you said, he just became like a fleeting moment in a limousine with the other wife there, and that was it for him.
Yeah, and I think in the previous arc, when she basically takes a couple of glasses of wine and loses it and dances. I mean, she's dancing around in the wedding, and Perrin kind of looks at her and thinks. I really was wondering what he was thinking, and that kind of made me feel like, oh, maybe maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he's not in on it, or maybe he's just who he is. But who knows if we did get an additional, season, I guess. If that might have been fleshed out a little differently, because I know they had to kind of rack things up with him, and it is what it is.
The Uncle Leo and Parent show.
Uncle Leo. He gets Parent a job in a cubicle.
All right, so I posted a question up there in the chat. I want to get y'all's opinions on this one. Saw Gerrera and Luthen. We talked about good and evil and how it's been blurred a little bit. Would you guys consider those? Would you consider them good guys, bad guys? Those are your choices. I'm not going to give you a third. Would you consider Saw and Luthen good guys or bad guys?
Saw for sure is a bad guy. I think he started out as someone that wanted revenge, but that sort of thing kind of eats you alive inside. We know that from the lessons of Yoda. But I love Saw. I wish we got more Saw. He's such an amazing actor, such a great character. I think they both have their heart in the right place. I think their actions are a little suspect. And I think that's I don't know. Saw definitely turned into a bad guy because of his actions.
Right,
and I think if Luthen would have lived, he probably would have gone in the same direction.
All right, so Pat and Charles, 2-part question. And the first one's yes or no. Can you do bad things for a good cause?
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. So then my follow-up question, can the dark side be used for good?
Oh, he's trapped us.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Gosh. I do want to talk about Luthen and Saw.
Yeah, I know. We'll get back to
I
it.
got a thing.
Know what? We'll get back to the dark side part. We'll
Okay.
get back to the dark side. Even though I won that conversation a few times. But anyway, so all right, go ahead. Go with your thoughts on Luthen and Saw.
Oh, no, we can finish this thought and then we can go back.
Sure, yeah.
All right. So, some would argue that a Jedi mind trick is kind of a dark side thing.
I agree.
Because you're manipulating people's minds for
Sure.
your own benefit.
Right.
Especially when you do it as much as they did in the Acolyte. Like every 5 minutes, they're like, hey, I need a soda. Go get me a soda.
Soda.
A soda. Not even like nog or something. It's a soda. Right. So so it's definitely something that can be used for good, I would say. It's kind of a weird idea because to use the dark side for good is strange on its face, but when you think about the effectiveness of it, that you could use it and certainly be effective. Absolutely.
I think it's the seduction, whether you choose or whether you fall under that path.
Because people have said Luke did that in Jabba's palace.
Right.
When he choked out the Gamorreans, but it's like, listen,
The
he
who?
didn't like
The what?
the Gamorreans.
The who?
The Gamorreans.
The Gamorrean?
Yeah,
Oh, those
Gamorreans. They were there on Scarif, remember?
And they arrived on the Tanta V4.
They
On
Oh,
Slave
boy.
1.
Slave!
Yeah.
It's Slave eyes, sir.
Capital I.
Yes.
Capital I.
But people have argued that Luke used to touch the dark side there, but it's like, it's not the same as when Vader does it.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's also the way too. I think that you get.
But if you do it lightly like Vader did it, you get a smile like from Krennic in Rogue One. So
Yes.
Now that's manipulation. I think that like the dark side too is that if you become let's say inebriated with the power that it can unleash, if you use it it's almost, and this ties into the Saw and Luthen comment with the ends do not justify the means. So I think that the way that Saw progressed, like where we first met him in the Clone Wars, and then where he got to, obviously he became a lot more militant. And I'd just like to point out, the last time all four of us were on screen together, we were talking about Saw Gerrera. So 5 years ago.
It's like poetry.
It's like poetry.
It rhymes.
So I think Coruscant, Mikey would have stayed at Coruscant. That was part of his character. And I'm not sure if Pat was getting to this point, but if Luthen had lived and progressed through the original trilogy and all that, he would have progressively got more and more militant as well, or at least less or more casual with the casualty necessary for the.
Where the hell is he?
Sorry. Cheers.
Yeah, I mean it's a slippery precipice for sure. Alan from Grave Reviews, the dark side for good in the short term is definitely a possibility, he says, but long term the dark side would corrupt the good deeds. And I think we see it in daily life from folks. So I think I think can you use the dark side for good? I think you can, but it leads
in moderation.
Darkness. In moderation.
So I think in a lot of cases, Luthen is worse than Saul because people see Saul and how he acts. See Saul, but at least he's overt about it. Like if you're working for him, you're working for a crazy bastard, right? I mean, like if you think you're working for that guy and you think he's sane, well, you're not a very good judge of character. But Luthen, he will sacrifice. I mean, you saw what happened with Young there. That he just got done saying, "Hey, my wife and kid," like 30 seconds after him talking about his wife and kid, blasted him right there on a park bench.
Right.
So I think in a lot of, just because he does it civilly, he's getting a pass. I think in a lot of cases, Luthen is definitely worse than Saul.
Yeah, because Luthen is working under the assumption, at least for the people that are working with him, he's working under the assumption that he's going to benefit the work that you're doing. And in the long run, he demonstrates that he's just using you. I mean, he did it to Cinta and Val. He did it to Lonnie.
Did it to Cassian.
Right.
All assets. There's assets.
Lonnie wanted to leave, and he's like, "No, stay in the elevator. We need you." So it is. It's but
we need you until you're more of a threat than
a liability. Right. Yeah.
And that's what was interesting to Brad's point with Luthen and Saul. Saul was the bad guy on the right team. Mm-hmm. And Luthen was with the Empire, as we saw.
Right.
And he saw firsthand those tactics and how effective they are. And how you can't get bogged down by your friends and the weakness that comes with putting these individuals above your cause. Like your TIE fighters. They're not worried about the pilots of the TIE fighters. They're worried about the efficacy of that tool in a dogfight.
Right. To cause the most damage.
So
I don't care about the pilot. Right.
Exactly. So when you don't care, like Ender's Game, the film Ender's Game.
Yeah.
So when the stakes are low, like you don't have a vested interest in your crew or your, Imperial Navy or anybody, it's a lot easier to get things done. So he saw that firsthand and employed that when he defected to the rebellion and was very effective, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Just while we're on Luthen, shout out to Stellan Skarsgård. I had no idea he had a stroke at some point, and he was having trouble remembering his lines.
Yeah.
But he worked through that and still delivered a masterful performance.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
Is there anything in the series that that you guys like did a little side eye, look that you guys didn't like, or anything that kind of caught you off guard that didn't work for you?
I had a question actually because I wasn't sure if this was explained earlier in season 1 when um, Deidre is being interrogated by Krennic, and she tells him that she had received a packet or like forwarded a bunch of essentially emails that had the Death Star written in it.
That was all that had to have happened in the year between.
Okay, because that I found a little bit of
they
a
stressed on that
machine.
one.
It was a quick way of threatening her and her position with Krennic unless she was going to be purely blamed for the kerfuffle in the hospital where the main guy was killed. So it sort of brought up almost as a way to make her situation more dire. So that was one thing that I saw. I was like, I don't remember that at all. I mean, you're right. It likely happened in that year off, but that's a pretty big.
That was a lot of information. Like, I think there should have been hints at that. Now, if you go back to season 1, obviously she likes to connect the dots. And I think that's why she likes Cyril, because he likes to connect the dots. Yeah. And she doesn't mind, stepping on toes to do so. So there is references to that, but I think to go that far and to say that she knows all this and she didn't there should have been more hints, at least in the second or third arc, that she was doing things along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Signal gate.
I think I think you did.
Deidre was brought into a secure group chat. I don't know what to tell you. It's not her fault.
But that also
laptop.
That also shows you the paranoia of the Imperial officers, obviously in this case Krennic. But working on a project for 10 years and only a certain amount of people know about it. And then obviously in the next couple of days he gets the rug pulled out from underneath him because of this could have gone along with that mess up that Vader says, your ability to cause problems is certainly noticed. So it's a good little tie-in, whether it was intentional or not, but I think it definitely serves worth mentioning. What's up, CJ?
Another brilliant nuance I want to talk about just briefly is the communications, the military communications in the show, where the stormtroopers are talking to each other and stuff like that was dead on throughout the entire thing. And Rose, something I texted you after the show, something pretty subtle where Krennic actually calls Partagrass, where he calls him Leo. And that is a nice touch. Like you can tell they're actually, they're breaking down the professional relationship, and for him to call and where it's going too. It's not ending well, but at that moment you can see that they're not Imperial officers and they're just friends, and him using his first name was a fantastic touch, I thought.
Yeah, and I think that's what the series gets right. Little touches like that, on the technical aspect too. I think the series really has adopted George Lucas's used universe to a degree that it's on steroids. I think the plugs, the buttons, the props are amazing, and kudos to the ISB forensic team and the equipment that they brought in, putting in slides and pushing buttons and analyzing things. I think that little sequence when they were, collecting evidence in Luthen's, gallery was phenomenal. I think it was a great little edited sequence there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if only Dedra had bleached her hard drives like Luthen did, we'd be fine.
That brings up a good point. Those transitions, you're talking about that a little bit before there, Brad. The communications, those radios that they use, those like decoder devices that they had, and of course they had one on Ferris. Yeah, like in season 1.
Yes.
And these special comm boxes, and they had these little rotator things that were specific to each machine. And it became such an important plot point at the end when the technician who's sitting at the thing and like suddenly it starts beeping. The tension that
yes
rose and ratcheted up the tension because they were now listening, and the way that was spread across and it was peppered throughout the entire 2 seasons. That was one of the brilliant plays because it something small but massively impactful.
Yeah.
And we talked. I think it was last week, or no, maybe the week before. We talked about tension just in general, like how hard it is to build tension in a show these days because of how, for the most part, desensitized we all are because of all the graphic images that we've seen, over the last decades. And this show really builds tension extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
And that is amazing because we know where this ends up. It's these are, obviously these are characters that we don't know about, but I mean the end results were Star Wars fans are mostly familiar with. But I think that's that was one argument too that I saw on the internet. It's like nobody wants to, who asked for this show, who asked for this story. We already know what happens to Andor. And then I posted, you're gonna die, but I still think your story is interesting. So why?
You're gonna die.
We're all heading in the same place, but it's the traveling, the storytelling in between life and death that's intriguing. So yeah, it's really a masterclass in storytelling, and obviously. I don't know, man. I'm hoping that, obviously Tony Gilroy says that he's done with Star Wars. He doesn't want to come back to this world, this sandbox. But I think Lucasfilm and Disney should learn something about this particular aspect of Star Wars. Bring in talented writers, bring in talented creators, and again, I'm not saying that the other shows didn't have talented people behind the scenes, but there's a definite difference. I like Robert Rodriguez, directing style. I grew up with watching Mariachi and reading all the guerrilla filmmaking that he's, it was a little bit of like, I saw a little bit of myself in his style. But I think, sometimes directors come in and want to put their stamp of their essence into something, but something like an IP like Star Wars, I think it's too big to do that. Just tell a good story in that universe, and the rest will follow. I think, I don't know. In the future, people are going to look at Andor and say, "Oh yeah, Tony Gilroy," and I think that's the right way to put your stamp on something rather than subverting expectations or some bullshit like that.
I told Pat that a couple of days ago that Rogue One and Andor are the saviors of Disney Star Wars at this point, in my opinion. They have produced the most well-liked but also well-written and well-constructed content. I think it even surpassing, for me, season 1 of The Mandalorian. That's just how far that these, as a package, these things have done and how it's helped the original trilogy and the other movies.
Yeah.
In a way, this, just to play devil's advocate, this did subvert some expectations. Like, I don't think we could have thought that seasons 1 and 2 of Andor were going to be this good. I mean, and to subvert it, I guess, that there was this much of a story to tell.
Yeah.
In that regard. So I think he did do it, but in the right way. Not just to piss people off.
Like the Clone Wars, the animated series. That's I mean
it's a throwaway line in A New Hope.
That turns
and then you've got the prequels, and then you've enriched it with the series.
Yeah. I want to ask you guys, and also in the chat, what were some of your favorite secondary characters or supporting characters? Obviously, we talked about Clea. She was marvelous. And, as her story kind of rolled out through the second season, I loved her more and more. Her character was great. But what are some of the other background characters that you guys really kind of connected with?
You know, aside from Partagrass?
Yeah.
Aside from Partagrass, yes. Teddy Pendergrass.
I'm still putting K2 in the minor category for this one. He wasn't there the entire season.
Sure.
Yeah.
He had limited screen time, but how cool and deadly that dude is. And like people said, you can tell that he definitely wanted to do the horror scenes, and we got a little bit of it, but still terrifying in his own right. So we, as usual, give it to K2.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I did like Baron. That's funny.
I love K2, and I've loved him since Rogue One, obviously. So just to see him, especially, and Charles and I were talking after he was brought back to life, and like when he's just looking over at Cassian and the crew of rebels that are ready to blast him, and just the subtle eye movements that he makes are just so fitting for the character. And so not only the subtleties, but then of course the sarcasm and the bluntness of his responses, it just make him such a treasure, and I want more of him.
When he said, for the record, I'm gonna say I was kidnapped. Like I died when he said,
Yes.
I was kidnapped.
I liked Wilmon. I thought he was,
Yeah.
you know, he continually surprised as each chapter or section or trilogy there, episodes moved on. It's like, wow, and he's showing more and he's given more. And it almost goes back to what you're saying way back at the start, Brad, with was Clea, was her character written more meaty because of how well she was performing. And when they were doing that gas thing when he was doing with Saw, and you just like when he took off his mask and he got it, it's like, wow, this character is just now completely blown up as a full rebel at this point. You know, that was impressive. So he would stand up for me.
Yeah.
And how about our boy Erskine as well?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Multimedia kind of guy.
You know, I think we need to talk about Saul Guerrera's problem. When we see him in Rogue One, he's got that mask, and I guess he's breathing some sort of life support to keep him alive. No, he's feeding his gas addiction.
Yeah. That was a great little, tidbit of information there. You're right.
He needs rehab.
Yeah, he definitely needs.
He's huffing his sister, apparently.
That's right. He calls him his sister.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's another testament to a character that started in animation. You know, Dave Filoni, George Lucas, brought him into live action, and his character just progressed. He's in the games. He's in the animated series. What a wonderful road for the actor, Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker was fantastic.
Yeah, he's great.
He ate it. He completely stole every moment that he was in that show because he had that presence and the transformation when he was younger and older, phenomenal.
And again, I wish we got more of him. But what about Bix? Let's switch gears here and talk a little bit about Bix, her sacrifice. There's interviews between the two actors. They're talking about how this particular storyline between the two characters really was about love and sacrifice, and obviously you can see it. But what were your thoughts on Bix basically making the decision for both of them? And obviously, Bix, kind of believing that Andor was, for a lack of a better word, he was the chosen one in this series, and he was the messenger. He was the one that was supposed to be, estimating information in order for the rebellion to really make a dent. And I think if Andor, well, let me start with Brad. What did you think of Bix and her sacrifice?
I think Bix is one of the most relatable, real characters in the entire series. She saw more pain than most of the characters did, and she persevered nonetheless. I think you can see she had a very good story arc, and you can see her mature and come a long way from season 1 to season 2. And definitely tragic. I was not. Maybe I should have been. I was not ready for the last scene of the show. I was like, those sons of bitches. Like, are you serious right now? Like, not. And when we talk about watching Rogue One again, I guess it's just been a lack of time. That I haven't been able to watch it. But of course, that adds another layer to Rogue One, and I hope that she goes on to do great things for the rebellion after this show.
Yeah. Pat, Charles, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that she will. I think she feels an obligation that giving up that relationship with Cassian allowed him to kind of shift into the next gear for the rebellion. And, I think she feels a bit of an obligation to keep that moving, to pick up that torch and run with it. I think that their relationship was really, really well written, to the point where I was upset at him for feeling things for Jin in Rogue One. I'm like, bro, you got Bix.
Interesting. Yeah. And it's funny because there's an earlier arc.
It's been what, two years since he had seen her at that point?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but they did such a good job with it that I was like,
yeah. And initially I thought that they were going to portray Bix as kind of a liability. She was self-medicating. And I thought, when Luthen went to go visit her in the safe house, I thought, he was going to make the determination that she was a liability and actually kill her. That would have been super, super sad. And I know a lot of people were, just kind of upset at what happened to her character. I think that would have been the wrong move now in retrospect, but I'm glad that she kind of turned herself around, because I think it made her sacrifice her decision to leave Cassian a little bit more poignant. That's a funny word.
I mean, she did it via email, though, so can you really blame him? I mean,
the text. There's a text. I found Bix to be. She was the bellwether of the entire show. She wore the emotions front. She was very present. Like, she's almost like the audience in that sense. Like, where she's moving through all these arcs.
Yeah.
We see almost what we're feeling on her, and that of course just brings her closer to us, making some of the stuff that she was going through even harder to go through. Bernie, Star Wife, the morning that she made the decision, she had a feeling that she was pregnant, and that's why she made that decision. She knew by her staying, it was going to pull Andor away from what he needed to do. Like you were saying, he was the chosen one. But she's also then saving his future boy or girl, because of that. So that mother instincts kicking in. So that made sense. But anyway, I didn't see that coming at all either. And that last scene was like gut wrenching, of course, and just so poignant.
That's a good question. Peter Griffin has a question here. Do we think that Vel knew that Bix was pregnant because she tried to tell him to go see her, but he's like, no, I'll find her when. I think this is where you can interpret the subtlety of her acting as well, and it could go one way or the other. But I think when these two characters, and obviously they're women friends, when friends get together they talk, and I don't think it's that much of a stretch to think that Vel maybe knew and was trying to give him a little hint.
Yeah, but then at that point, does that pull him away from the rebellion?
Right, and I think that's why Vel maybe backed up a little bit.
Yeah,
and besides that, he hasn't seen that kid since he was 6 years old.
Him or the kid?
Yes.
Yes.
See.
I'm still waiting for the prequels where we actually get 6-year-old, Andor the entire time.
Does he have a little mustache already? I feel like he does.
Yes.
Arturito.
Arturito. Let's talk about this Imperial side character Partagas listening to the manifesto.
Oh, that was pretty
What
cool.
I'm going to ask Brad specifically because I know he's got thoughts. He's listening to the manifesto and he's realizing what? Take it away.
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know what he's realizing. I mean, I think there's a lot of personal introspection going on there. I mean, he going back to you made the comment from what he said from the first season where he sees this as a disease, as a cancer, and I think I don't think he wants to admit that it's beyond his control now because the Empire is all about control. And the ISB, being the strong arm of this, they thought that they could control everything, and you're just not going to be able to on it. And so for him, I guess let's stick with that analogy. Then, now that disease is terminal, and it's terminal for the Empire, and it's terminal for him. And you see how he ends, and you see a couple of years later how the Empire ends.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what he's realizing as he listens to the manifesto.
So do you think I guess I can kind of take your meaning and answer my own question here, but do you think then that he's realizing that the rebellion, like Jedi Chicago is saying, that the rebellion has grown too much to really be controlled and it's useless? Or do you feel like he's now thinking that all of his actions in the ISB were futile and he was on the wrong side?
No, I don't. I do not think he thinks he's on the wrong side. He's a career Imperial career intelligence guy. If you look at people that are in intelligence, doesn't matter what side they're on, no side thinks they're on the wrong side. We've talked about how many Cold War references are in this show from the 40s, 50s, 60s. It's full of Cold War references. He does not at all think he's on the wrong side. It's just he thinks these people are stupid, and he doesn't know how they're getting away with it,
and how they're expanding and how they're growing their cause. And you think about what he had done to Dedra because she screwed up,
Right.
and now the rest of this, if it is out of control, is kind of on him. And so what's his higher ups going to do to him?
So the manifesto comes into play, and in perspective, more so once your position within the side you believe you're right on is going to come down on your head, as opposed to being part of the machine that's going to come down on someone else's head. So I think that changes the view of it as well.
and don't forget, this was in a way a self-fulfilling prophecy on the Empire's part, because you know for a fact there were more Gormans. Here's the thing: like they stirred up the insurgency on Gorman on purpose to get the huge tracts of land there for their mining efforts. They did that on other planets too, stirred up insurrections,
Right.
so then they could come in and
and that's it.
order through chaos, as they say. They instilled the chaos themselves. The rebellion wouldn't have won if it weren't for the help of the Empire.
Yes.
And so it's a backfire. In this case, it backfired in the worst way for him.
The fact that the sniper shot an Imperial as opposed to one of the Gormans to incite that I didn't see that coming. And my jaw dropped when that happened.
Oh, I did. I knew for a fact. They got the greenest guys out there. They got these 18-year-olds straight out of the academy, and they
put them in the worst possible powder keg. Yep.
Getting back to the subtlety and the powerfulness of the way that they're telling the story, it's a lot of it. And again, we're not used to this in Star Wars. A lot of it is show, don't tell. And there is the scene where the two ISB agents, one goes in and talks to to Partagas, and he leaves, and Partagas says, "Give me a moment to gather my thoughts." And
He knows.
He walks out. Partagas puts the weapon on the table, and he ponders, and this beautiful long shot just kind of like starts to to zoom out. We get a shot of stormtroopers out in the hallway, weapons ready, and this other ISB officer comes out, and it holds for a second or two, and you hear the laser blast, and the stormtroopers are ready to act, and the ISB officers is like that. I had to pause at that moment and run around my room a couple of seconds, because that was powerful, man.
Brilliant. Yeah.
You don't see that again. Show don't
tell.
Kind
of funny considering he was just a minor character. You don't usually get attached to minor characters.
Exactly. But there are so many moments of that caliber in this season alone, obviously. But again, kudos to Gilroy. I don't know, man. It's surprising to me. It's refreshing, and I'm glad I was alive to witness this.
I'm glad you were alive too, bro.
Oh, thank you.
And that's why your story is important.
Yes, exactly.
Even though you're gonna die one of these days.
And no one asked for it, really.
I know my parents didn't ask for mine.
Oh no. What about Andor, Cassian's little speech to the rebel the rebel council there? Obviously, he knows a couple things about Luthen. Everybody's kind of against Luthen and dismiss him as a whack job. But there's some really good scenes in that on that round table, that area there that we get, and we get a treat because some of the actors come back for this, and we get a little extra nod. And
hey, screw all those people.
Right?
like straight up, like they're all worthless. And some of them even come back in Chuck Wendig's stupid book trilogy, and they're worthless there too.
Yeah.
Okay, but the content of the speech.
Oh, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, but
yes, that's the one. Don't worry, who was in the room. It's interesting because he acknowledges their perceptions of Luthen. He's like, listen, I know the guy was effed up. I know he was a whole total disaster. Okay. But he set into motion several things that led to this, that get the ball rolling, that got people involved that otherwise wouldn't have been. And you, like we were talking before, you can have people that are sketchy or even bad guys that do the right thing, that get things moving in the right direction, no matter how batshit they are, or how backstabbing or conniving. You can get people that effect the sort of change that the rebellion was looking for.
Yeah.
And it sets up Andor's sort of visible physical disdain for this group of people in Rogue One. Like, he's just very sort of nonchalant, like, oh, you guys are a bunch of assholes already. So it's so
Brad got to him.
I don't even know who this Chuck Wendig is. But yeah, it informs that really well.
Yeah.
You want to talk about some characters? General Draven. Phenomenal actor. He plays that part so well. And again, we've talked about all the interviews and articles that they're doing for this. I'm here for all those. I hope they continue to put those out. I'll watch every single one of them. The one from the actor, and I forget his name, but they're so genuine. He's like, this is a kid who I saw Star Wars in 1977, and now I'm here. Like, and so you can feel that with their performances. And this is what happens when you actually get actors who love and appreciate the franchise.
Don't say.
What? Yeah. He's enough of he's believable enough to be a general, but also passionate enough that you can see his appreciation for not only the franchise, but for what this does for this beloved film that he grew up watching.
Sure. Yeah.
Very cool.
I wish they could have gotten they mentioned the other general, the one that was
Dodonna.
Well, they mentioned Dodonna, but also
Dodonna.
the one that was in Blue Squadron.
Merrick.
Oh yeah, yes.
Merrick, yeah. It would be nice to have seen him on there as well.
But it was nice to see
And who else?
Admiral Raddus.
Admiral Raddus. It was really good to see him too.
Who else were we talking about that what we thought would be? Oh, Galen Erso.
Galen Erso, yeah.
That could be something.
Yeah. But it was a good mention. They mentioned his name. You know, who told you about, who told you about
Kino.
Galen Erso?
What?
No, not Kino from season 1.
Oh yeah.
It would have been nice to see him.
He didn't want to come back.
Tarkin.
But yeah, I mean, any other surprises? I know, people were clamoring, will we see Leia? Will we see, other characters? It would have been interesting to see Galen Erso. I think that probably would have fit.
Maybe like a little hollow, like the bounty pucks.
Yeah. But I think maybe because he wasn't in it, it brings his role in Rogue One, to more of a front and center.
We did see Leia. We saw her twice. Clea and Leda. I mean, that was clearly those were Leia, no?
He's
Right?
Canadian. The translation sometimes gets to him.
It's
That's
amazing
true.
to see some of the posts that like, oh, that's got to be Leia because like she's the one letter away from Leia. Oh my god.
Right. Here's a good question from Dagon. Does this restart Disney Star Wars or Star Wars in general?
I don't think it can.
I think it enriches the franchise. Like Charles said, this is like the gem of the Disney Star Wars. But like Rose said, I feel like this Andor and Rogue One is kind of an isolated project, and this is it. This is what we get now. Can the rest of Star Wars learn from this?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Should
We
they?
hope.
Yes, rebellions are built on hope.
Yeah. I think whoever comes in and succeeds Kathleen Kennedy should really kind of look back and say, well, what did they do right? What needs work? But I
You
think
have enough evidence.
Yeah.
John Favreau and Dave Filoni. I mean, they should be able to see what just happened. I mean, and if these I didn't know about the Rogue One being the most watched movie on the platform, but that's a tangible thing. I mean, hello, this is prime example of, hey, what was in that recipe over there?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts? I think we've exhausted our discussion, our topics. Anything else?
No one ever talks about the spiders on Gorman. I mean,
Poor spiders.
the spiders.
Everyone talks about the spiders on Gorman.
Jedi of Chicago says they need to keep this momentum going. Skeleton Crew and Andor have built up some momentum, but Ahsoka season 2 and the Mando movie needs to keep going as well.
Yeah.
All right. And
Are the creators worried too much? When I'm talking Star Wars creators specifically, are they worried too much about making what they like, as opposed to I don't know if they can take this and replicate it. Like even Filoni, if I just saw an interview with Filoni. He asked Filoni who his favorite character is in Star Wars. He says Ahsoka.
Right.
His own creation, which I get. But
to be fair, I would like my Star Wars creation too.
Well, sure. But
sure.
I mean, you can say there's a lot of Filoni memes these days. It went from Filoni's the savior of Star Wars. There's a lot of Filoni memes these days, right? He's going to throw all his people in there, and they're all going to get references. And but are they worried too much about? And I think we saw this with the Acolyte as well. It was what the creators wanted instead of giving the fans what they want.
Right.
Can they shift away from that formula? I don't know.
There's a balance.
You have the right creators, I think.
Yeah, and there's a balance. I mean, obviously, there are fans that want everything. There are fans that want everything to make sense. I think that's probably the more important aspect of things.
Nah.
But yeah, I mean, that term fan service could be a 4-letter word if done incorrectly. But I think at the end of the day, it's got to be something that where a story where characters and motivations make sense. Uh, and I think if you kind of live by that rule, then you should be okay. I don't know.
You can't just do the build it and they will come anymore. I think there's just
Sure.
put the Star Wars name on it, and that
Yeah.
everyone's going to love it, and it's going to be a hit. It has to be the right way.
Well, they've
Yeah.
Star Wars stamped enough hot garbage that you can't rely on that.
Yeah.
You know, and you need to. That's why these projects are so important for the brand to prove to people now they have to prove to people that they're worth watching.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and Andor's the new standard now.
And it's a high standard.
Yes.
Very, very high.
High. Very
It's
high.
giveaway time.
I'll take one.
You already got one.
We need to give away this Cassian Andor Funko Pop, and I want you in the chat to enter to win. And what I need you guys to do is take a picture of yourself enjoying this stream on YouTube or whatever, and then send it to the Scarif Scuttlebutt DM, and just send me a picture. Tell me why you enjoyed the stream tonight, and a little bit about your relationship with Andor, the show. You like it? Do you not like it? But I will pick random.
I'm going to screenshot this because nobody will enter. So I'm just going to take a screenshot so I can.
And feel free to crop from the bottom too.
Yeah. But Cassian Andor goes out to a lucky winner. Go ahead and take a selfie of yourself enjoying the stream tonight. Send it to the Scarif Scuttlebutt account DM. And obviously, I'll pick a winner, and I will post everybody's pictures as I get them, and pick a random winner in about a week or so.
I'm glad that Roe's not deciding to go off of Charles' suggestion.
Oh yes. Pat's also giving away these matching glasses. Just kidding.
Shut up.
There you go.
That's very nice, actually.
Yes.
Cassian
I like
Andor in his pajamas.
It reminds me of Andy Serkis.
Oh.
Yeah.
I liked Andy Serkis.
Excellent. All right, final thoughts. Pat, C-Dub.
Brad?
No, you're first.
I'm first. Wow. You're not first, you're last. So here we go. Yeah, I think what we've all been stating can be underscored with the fact that this is a unique vein of Star Wars, but really very well done, not only in terms of visually, but casting and script-wise, and just general plot and story. They took a throwaway line that was from A New Hope and made a very compelling film out of it, and then even expanded on that with these interesting characters that they brought in based off of this throwaway line, and made them some of the most fascinating and conflicting in Star Wars.
True.
Yeah, Pat said the word vein. I agree. This is
Yeah,
gold.
I heard vein, and my mind went straight to. Never mind.
Gold, right? Right? Gold, like vein of gold.
Vein of things.
Yeah, that was the. I think it was fantastic. I hope that.
In veins.
Yeah, that's very vascular things.
I was
Brand-
thinking of the vein in Cam Ray's forehead.
Yes. That's a load of Star Wars. That thing's going to pop.
Sorry, Charles. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but for me, it was fantastic, the whole series, and I really do hope that Star Wars, Disney Star Wars, looks at itself, looks at the success, and learns from it, and moves with it, and takes that ball and carries it forward.
Yeah, agree.
Ro, we've talked many times about what it was like talking about Star Wars as a kid at the lunch table, and how much we just enjoyed the material. And I haven't felt this excited about Star Wars in a long time. As I texted you, I'm back in love with Star Wars. I have always loved Star Wars. It's one of those love but not in love type deals, you know. And
Star Wars, it's not you, it's me.
right, it's no, but it's really you. But in this, I am
It's not you, it's me. I prefer good content.
right. I am back in love with Star Wars. I don't know what it'll take to keep that. If they can replicate this formula, keep putting out. And again, it doesn't have to be on screen. Reign of the Empire. It's a good book so far. It's something to catch up to where you guys are. I'm not going to read comic books anymore because they just get overridden. But
It's true.
it's okay. But as long as they keep putting this much heart and soul into it, I'm excited about where we can go with this. So it's been a real pleasure.
And yeah, look, I channeled Cam Ray and he popped up. Wow. Very funny.
No, that's your
Someone say Vane.
Yes. But yeah, all good thoughts.
I meant vain, like he's so vain. He probably thinks this song is about him.
There you go.
You probably think this stream is about you. Well,
there's another stream that's about Cam, and well, never mind. That's later.
That's later. Excellent, Pat and Charles from Conversation.
No, you didn't give your thoughts, bro. You're not getting out of this that easy.
I've been giving my thoughts all night long.
No, you gotta give us your thoughts.
I think it's top tier drama. It's top tier Star Wars. Andor should be liked by all. That's
Only
it.
if you don't like the original trilogy.
You're just a shill.
That was very mature of you.
Yes, very mature. Excellent. Pat and Charles from Conversations Podcast, part of the Red 5 Network, for another 10, 15 minutes.
More than we expected.
More than you expected. But thank you guys for joining us on this final conversation of Andor. Pat and Charles, why don't you tell folks where people can find you to say hello there?
Oh, man. Well, you can say hello there on our very own website at conversations.com. Facebook.com/conversations. I don't know why I went into Obi-Wan with that. Maybe that's
the normal thing.
We're on X at Swations. Instagram at Conversations. Threads at Conversations as well. Commerce Swations on Etsy.
Money.
Because we're in it for the money.
We're not making any.
There isn't any. Oh, and link.tree/conversations. And while we're in the links, as far as Ro knows, we're still in the Red 5 Network. Still proud founding members. You can find them and all of our other Red 5 friends at bio.link/Red5.
And OnlyFans/Conversations.
I mean, we weren't going to unveil that yet, but okay.
It's just me saying things with my French accent.
My Leia buns are hot.
$5 to take it off, $10 to keep it on.
Oh.
And that is the scuttlebutt.